Yesterday, you may have missed it, but our old pal Craig Carton came on and announced shockingly that he will be doing 3 New York Yankee games. He'll be doing play-by-play with Susan Waldman in the same booth for 3 games coming up in the middle of August. A very exciting announcement. And our dear friend, our coworker, the producer of the very popular morning show here on WFAN, Al Dukes, was not happy with that interview. And I don't want to make Al blush, but there are very few guys I respect in this business more than Al Dukes. So I figured if he was mad at us, we should put him on the air, let him rip me and you a new ass. I can try to respond, and then we'll see if I've changed his mind. So, Al, always great talking to you. How you been?
Oh, hi there. Thank you for having me on the program today.
Are you on vacation?
I did take a week of vacation, yes.
Wow. So you're still very invested in the radio station.
Why are you listening to us then?
Well, here's what happened. I got up this morning to have my coffee, and I like to see what's going on in the world of Twitter. Mm-hmm. And then I saw, Craig made the announcement that he's doing this and was a guest on your show. So I went looking for the audio, and I listened to it. I really settled in. I was like, this is going to be great. It's going to be all about what's Craig's relationship with Susan. How did she allow this? Mm-hmm. All this stuff. And I got nothing. I was so disappointed. Mm-hmm. I thought the whole interview, you could have done a full interview just on the odd dynamic of how this came to be. Did Susan approve this? Did she have to approve it? Did she have to accept it? Could she have taken the day off? All this stuff. And I was just disappointed that we got none of that.
Don't you think that we should wait to talk to Susan to have that conversation?
I think you could do both. I think you could ask Craig.
Well, I will give you my thought on why that happened and what's about to come. I'll peel back the curtain for you, and you tell me what you think, okay?
All right.
You're a wrestling fan, right? Or at least you used to be a wrestling fan, right? I'm a big fan of a long-term story. And so the plan Tiki and I had, which we're still progressing with, was to have Craig on for the shocking announcement, kind of dance and laugh at the idea that he and her are going to be in the same room. Step 2. So that's Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm. That was like the Raw, like, holy crap, they're going to be in the same box together? And then it's like, well, what happens next? Well, what happens next that I admit, Hal, we haven't confirmed yet because it's a very sensitive situation, is Susan Waldman would join us. And we would follow up with, how the hell is this happening? Mm-hmm. How did it happen? My fear yesterday, and I love Craig dearly, and I know Tiki does, and I know you do. My fear is that Craig could have said something yesterday that blew the whole thing up, and our WrestleMania main event would never have happened. So it was, let's set the tone. Let's have Susan on in a few days, which I do admit, for full transparency, we are still working on, and I really hope that happens. And then, and this is my favorite part, and this is really a secret, but again, I'll tell you because I wanted to have them both on at the same time. That was going to be the third step.
Yeah.
And so that they would all talk together. And then we'd have a grand finale, and then they would have the broadcast. So that was, and still is, the hopeful plan. And that is the reasoning why Tiki and I said, you know what? We're going to let the announcement happen. We're not going to go nuts yet because we want to give you that stuff a little bit later on. Your thoughts?
It's not a one-off with Craig.
It's not a one-off. Yeah, it's a long-term storyline like we're Paul Levesque.
Yeah, but in wrestling, all this is already agreed to. Susan has not agreed to come on your show or any show.
Correct.
So we don't know that we're going to get that. And just having Craig on, making this announcement, and not asking about it, it just seemed like you weren't allowed to ask about it. That's what it felt like.
We could ask whatever we want, but let me ask you this,
There was
Al.
too much risk in blowing the whole thing up, which I have to admit was a worry.
But let me ask you, Al, how many people do you think actually know about the history of Craig and Susan?
I think anybody who tuned into 10 years of Boomer and Carton and 3 years of Carton and Roberts, I think would have to be aware of that. There were years, and this was one thing I would sometimes not like about it, was Craig would do the Susan impression all baseball season, and then there was a year where it just went year-round, when Susan wasn't even on the radio.
Right.
I was like, right, so it was a constant.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question by Tiki. I think that there are obvious, I know about it. I think a lot of listeners know a lot about it. I'm not sure if everyone does, but I will say this to you. I think you bring up a very good point because it did go through our mind of, let's just get into it right now. but a part of it was like foreplay, where it's kind of want to wait because the idea is hearing Susan, and I am very hopeful that she is going to come on. We have great respect for Susan Waldman. I think a lot of people do. And she could have said no, right?
Of course.
She could have said no to this whole thing. Apparently, she said yes. So I can't wait to hear her side. So a part of me wants to make sure we can get that. Hopefully them together, which is probably more of a pipe dream, if we're being honest. And then it actually happening. I think you do bring up a good point about it. But that was the thought process behind kind of getting a little bit more out of the Susan Craig situation, and hopefully we will deliver on that for you and us and the audience.
And the announcement of it, and then Craig coming on your show. Now it's too late for Susan to back out. She can't back out. So this would be a very bad look.
I don't think so. Bad look how? Susan Waldman can do whatever the hell Susan Waldman wants to do. And so,
but a bad look because she's already agreed to it. So now she can't back out of it. I mean, she could, sure. But
who's it going to look bad for it? No, it's going to be fine. Craig will be out there by himself with somebody else.
Well, hold on, Al. Seriously.
I don't think Susan will back out, but if she wanted to, why would that make her look bad?
Because it looks like at that point she would have agreed to it. Then Craig came on and talked about it, and now she backed out of it.
Yeah, but he didn't say anything bad. He hasn't said anything bad.
Well, right? That's what you guys were afraid of, though.
Yes, because then it wouldn't have had no. Right. So I actually disagree with Tiki about this, Al. I think not that it would look bad on her. I don't think that matters. That's up to how you feel about it. I think there's a chance it doesn't happen. Like I even said it yesterday, and that part's true. Like I still have an idea that is this really going to happen? So you are more confident that it's definitely going to happen than I am. I wouldn't be surprised if I found out tomorrow it's not happening. You'd really be surprised?
I would be surprised because they clearly. This was not oh, by the way, I'm sure that whoever's in charge of the Yankees over there didn't call Susan and say, do you want to do this? And she said yes or no. Like that. By the time they got to Craig being on your show,
right,
announcing that, all that had to have been a million phone calls and worked out.
I agree with you, but I still think until that moment occurs, and I really hope it does because I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to listen to it. But until they're in the booth together, I think there's a chance it doesn't happen. Now, here's what I would say. Craig's definitely broadcasting. Like that we could all agree on. He's definitely going to do those 3 games. But them being together for those 3 games, I don't think is a guarantee until it actually happens. So that's the part I would disagree with you on. But I certainly hope that Susan will come on and we will get more answers from her on how this all came about and then continue to find out more as we get closer to, what's the big day? August 8th, I think it is?
August 9th, 10th, and 11th.
9th, 10th, and 11th. So that's my at least retort to you, but I do understand where you're coming from because I think sometimes as a listener, and I certainly feel this way, and you brought up actually a really good comparison about Howard and the times where, even though that didn't happen with Kathy Lee, like, Howard, how can you not say this, this, and this? In this case, because we know there's a long-term answer where we will get all of the questions answered, and it could be wildly entertaining, especially if they both agree to come on. That's where I said, all right, let's pause, let's get that part out, and we'll go drip by drip by drip. Now, are you telling me that the future of WFAN, our producer, should not have agreed to that and should have put his foot down and said, actually, that's a bad decision, you should have done this?
Yeah, I think Tommy has come out. He's very forward-speaking on Twitter and on the air that he is the leader for the new generation at WFAN. He wants that role. He wants to be the leader, and our leader let us down yesterday.
So even after my wrestling explanation, you are still very upset with us. Is that fair to say?
Because again, in pro wrestling, Vince McMahon controls all. You do as Vince McMahon says, right. And that is not the case here. Susan doesn't have to do what you say.
No, you're right. No, that part is a risk. Like our dream plan of Susan coming on later this week or next week, and then Craig and Susan together, it may not happen. It's like booking The Rock versus Roman Reigns and then it not occurring a few months later. But that is at least, I wanted to, in fairness, give you the thought back. I do appreciate it, even if we disagree, and I do respect your radio knowledge, but that was my thought process on what we did, and I guess we could agree to disagree.
Although, also the other good part, because the New York Post has turned this into a story.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I know from my many, many years of listening to Howard Stern that even before the internet, Howard Stern had a service that would do newspaper clippings for any time his name is mentioned. He gets he's aware of it.
Right.
So at some point, Howard Stern's reading this article, which is interesting to me.
That's a good, because you mentioned Howard Stern. You know what I should say then, so that he can see this again? Howard Stern actually has a big penis. I should say that again, because he's already heard me say that once, and I glanced at it once while at Sirius.
He wants to see my penis.
That's right. That's right. All right, Al, we appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Thank you for, indulging. See you later. The great Al Dukes. So that's a little behind-the-scenes curtain action on our thought process around the big announcement. And you're more hopeful than I am. You think Susan will come on to talk about this?
I think Susan is not going to not show up for the broadcast, and I do think that she will come on.
I hope so.
I think have a good relationship with Susan. I like Susan a lot.
Uh-oh.
And so I am going to, if I have to reach out, I'll reach out to Susan.
Yes. Do you think that she hates me for anything that I have said?
I don't know. You were with Craig for 2 years.
No, I love Susan. I have great respect for her. And the truth is, I'm not saying this because I work at WFAN. I'm not saying this because the Yankees are our radio partner. And I'm certainly not saying this because Craig and I did work together for 2.5 years. I am saying this as a radio geek. I cannot wait for them to be in the same booth for 3 games. I can't wait.
What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. I'm sure they'll be cordial to each other. Like, I'm not saying that they're going to fight, but I just think it's going to be fascinating, and I can't wait to hear it. So I'm not saying one person is going to be mean to the other person. I have no idea. This is truly professional wrestling. It's like one of those matches where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Look, I know Craig is a good dude, and he may do the radio bit till it makes your head want to pull your hair out. I'm being serious.
Yes, I know.
But he's a good guy.
He's a good person, yes.
And so is Susan.
Yes.
And so when you get good people in a room together, good things generally happen.
I agree.
So maybe we want to believe that it's going to be volatile and I don't know, undercutting one another, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I think they're both professionals.
I think that a lot of times when you're excited for something that seems so awkward on paper, you're right. It turns out to be very, very cordial. It's actually very similar to my idea yesterday about Biden and Trump doing a speech together. Mm-hmm. Susan and Craig coming together, kind of similar. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'd say it feels less likely because Biden and Trump have talked on the phone.
Right.
What Craig revealed to us yesterday is they have still not spoken yet. That's what Craig told us yesterday. So I'm excited to hear what happens next, and I'm very excited for the idea of Susan coming on the air. Now, I am off the rest of the week. That's fine. I don't need to be here. It's fine. If you book her, Tiki, and if anybody can do it, it's you. Because you have a great relationship with everybody.
Generally.
And you know what the next step is?
What's that?
After the Craig-Susan thing is really successful?
Yeah.
I forgot whose idea this was. This may have been Lukey's idea, and that's great. Lukey's the future. The next idea, or maybe it was Craig's idea, the next plan of attack is that we're going to have a giant broadcast.
This was my idea.
Lukey, we're going to have a giant broadcast. You know what? You say it, Lou. Go ahead.
So, New York Giants, you're up. Bob Papa, we love him. Carl Banks, we love him. You guys get the day off. We have Tiki in the booth with Tom Coughlin.
Yes!
Radio broadcast.
Let's go!
Who's doing play-by-play? Who's doing color?
You're going to do play-by-play. You're talented enough, bro.
Oh, I know. I just wanted you to say it.
Oh, I think if CBS came
I do play-by-play for Ultimate Beastmaster.
Oh, trust me, Spence knows all about it. I think if CBS went to you and said, hey, this season, and I know the play-by-play guy you have, Andrew Catalan's tremendous. It's not a knock on him. If he went to you, or if he got sick one day, had COVID or something, and they said, Teak, you need to do the play-by-play, I think you do a bang-up job.
I would. Last year he was sick. Like he was losing his voice.
Yeah.
Like he literally couldn't talk the whole week. And then he's a champ because he comes through on game day. But me and Matt Ryan are sitting up in the booth like, dude, if his voice goes,
oh, it's you.
We're going to have to do this by ourselves.
No, you're going to do it. Because Matt Ryan, no offense.
No, I mean, he was brand new.
Yeah.
He just first time in the booth, first time really doing any kind of, sustained media. But yeah, I would have done it.
By the way, the one thing I will say is you and Tom Coughlin coming together is actually far less crazy because even though you may not have had the greatest relationship with him, you had a relationship with him.
We had a great working relationship.
Right. Susan and Craig have never spoken to each other.
Yeah.
Like they've never communicated with each other unless they've communicated in the last 3 hours. I have no idea. But as of yesterday,
like ever, they don't have a relationship.
They have never communicated with each other. That is what Craig has told me. I believe him.
Wow.
I've never talked to Susan about Craig.
There are two important things I think we're missing here. Number one, are we doing anything special for the Subway Series next week? Because if we are, maybe we get Susan in person.
Oh, that's true. I totally forgot about that. So, yeah, we're going to be at the Subway Series next Tuesday. Great call, Sean. I forgot about that.
Maybe in person be a little better?
Did we know where we're doing that from yet?
I think that's going to be at the Hard Rock.
All right.
I don't know if it's been officially confirmed, but that's likeliest our location, yes.
Also, I didn't catch everything yesterday. I was dealing with my own problems. I think the more important question to ask Craig has nothing to do with how you do with Susan. It's just, when's the last time you watched 27 innings of baseball?
No, we addressed that, don't worry.
Yes. This will be the first time he's watched an entire game in his life.
Oh, nice.
The Hard Rock thing was also another loogie idea. The other thing, too, with Craig, and I think Evan will agree with this because we're buddies with Craig, we're friends with him, and it's hard to communicate with him. Like, Craig has his own sort of way of communicating that if you speak Craig, you know that. So I think just it's tough to communicate with him.
Who do you think calls who first? Craig calls Susan or Susan calls Craig? I want to hear that conversation.
That's a good question.
Can we do what RFK did? RFK Jr. taped a conversation, or at least somebody did, of him and Donald Trump talking yesterday.
Yeah.
And it got leaked out. And it was so funny in that RFK never said a word. Trump just kept talking. And RFK's holding the phone like, is this guy going to shut up at some point? So if there would ever be a leaked phone conversation, I would totally love to hear that.